What is up, everybody? Sveinson here, back with another MLB 9 Innings video. Today we're going to be talking about bullpen skills. You can see I set up a tier list maker here. I was trying to kind of figure out how to go over legend skills in video format, or not legend skills, but bullpen skills in video format, and I think putting them in a tier list will really help cover all of the range of skills and how you should be using them. I can talk about them as I put them together. We can reset this tier list. We can cover closing pitchers, setup pitchers, middle relief, and long reliever. So we're going to cover legend skills. We're going to cover which gold skills are good. We're going to cover which silver skills are good. And we're also, in the meantime, while we're doing all that, try to cover what each role does and how it's used. And hopefully, by the end of this video, you'll walk away having a general idea of how to construct a bullpen. I'm not going to go into really advanced details. This is supposed to be really a higher level overview. There are things like shorting certain legend skills and what skills pair best together in the bullpen that I'm not really going to be going into. This is just supposed to be a high level cover of what skills are good and how they're used in your bullpen. So let's get to it. So let's start this off by talking about your closing pitcher. So if you're looking at your bullpen lineup, you can see all the way over here you have this slot labeled CP. For your ranked in clubs battles, if you're leading by 3 or less in the 9th inning, your closing pitcher will come in. So this role is very important because if you're winning a game and you get to the late innings, you don't want to lose it off of, having a bad closing pitcher. Some would argue it's the most important role in your bullpen. I tend to agree with that, although the setup men are very important as well. So typically you'll want your best pitcher in either closing or setup, but you'll definitely want a top 2 or 3 pitcher in your closing pitcher role. All right, so before we kick this off, just a couple notes. One, if a skill is not on this list, it means that it's just not good enough. Bronze skills, they're not on this list. They're, the lowest thing I have is technically it provides value. The skill is going to have some effect in your bullpen. If it doesn't do that, then I've kind of left it off. There are a lot of silver skills like firefighter and power pitcher and control artist. All bronze skills are left off. So just if you roll those, they're not on the list. They're just not there, and I don't think that they provide a lot of value, if any. And you should look for, if you're going for a 3 skill set, you should look for a better third. So I'm also not going to really go in detail about what each skill does. I'll talk a little bit about it, but if you roll the skill, you can read about it. I don't think you guys really want to watch an essay over what every skill does. You just want to know which ones are best, and that's really what I want to explain. So, yeah, let's get this underway. You're going to see a recurring theme here. Bullpen Day, Control Master, they are your 2 best legend skills. Bullpen Day, it just, on a relief pitcher, it boosts all the stats for your pitcher a ton. Gives it a ton of stats. It's a really good skill, and yeah, it's hard to go wrong with Bullpen Day on a closing pitcher, especially. Same with Control Master. It's kind of like buffed up finesse pitcher plus last boss. It increases your location and it increases your breaking ball, and it decreases the opponent's con and POW, which affects its BIU bonus, which is one of the reasons it's so good. But just in general, these 2 skills, they're the best. If you land them, you're going to be pretty happy with the fact that you landed them. The next best legend skill, and it definitely is the next best one, is Fireballer. You probably want some higher levels with it, a level 4 or above. It does have some weaknesses. It does give up more runs than Control Master or Bullpen Day, but it's still a very good skill, especially if you pair it with Finesse Pitcher. It works great. If you have Mess on it, it can help, but you don't love Mess in the bullpen. So it's good. It's good. We like Fireballer. This may be a little bit controversial, but I'm going to put cooperative pitching on there. If you get it with high levels, you definitely can run it. The stat boosts it gives is nice. It's definitely the 4th best. It's better than all the other legend skills, but it's really not as good as these other three. If I could kind of have a tier between usable and unusable, I that doesn't really exist. But if I could have a tier here and put cooperative pitching there, that's where it'd go. So it'll go at the end of usable. Like, it works. If you get high levels with it, it's fine. But I'd take any of these bullpen day control master fireballer over it. Yeah, because it's fine. Then unusable for your closing pitcher, because they only pitch 1 inning. Slow starter. If you land it, it can go in some other relief spots. We'll talk about that later. It cannot go in closing pitcher. Pitcher's insight is just bad, and pitcher's chemistry can go in long relief. We'll talk about that later. But it really can't go into the closing pitcher position. So next up, elite gold and silver skills. I'm gonna put finesse pitcher up here. It is really the best of the gold skills, and we'll talk about that as we cover the next tier. It's really good. You have to specially train it. If you end up landing it, I have a video on it. I'll link that video down below in the comments, so check it out. If you land finesse pitcher, make sure you train for it correctly. So adding on to that, let's just move on. I'm going to put last boss a tier below, and some people would argue last boss and the next skill I'm going to talk about should be up in this elite gold and silver skill. I think it's slightly worse just because you can run into an issue where this last boss ends up getting nerfed by mentor level, 18 or 19, mentor level 19 can nerf last boss. That can make it a lot weaker, especially if you're paired with a silver skill like Setup Man or Winning Streak that gets nerfed. You put those two together and it can be a bad time. So I really don't think it's as good. I think Finesse Pitcher is definitely a tier above. But following behind these good gold and silver skills, I'm going to put Winning Streak kind of toward the top of this tier for closing pitcher. It's only a silver skill, and it gives you a stat boost when you're winning. Remember, your closing pitcher is always going to be coming in when you're winning. So Winning Streak is really excellent, and it almost seems to outperform what you would expect from it, right? It almost seems to outperform just a simple stat boost. Not really easy to explain. Sometimes Com2 just has weird logic for why things work. And Winning Streak is used by so many like really good power ranking teams and high level decks as a closing pitcher skill. So I kind of put it second in this tier for a closing pitcher. Next up, I'm gonna just go with dominant pitcher is really good, similar to finesse. It needs special training, so if you're not sure about that, check the link down below. Like we said earlier, closing pitcher is going to be in for 1 inning at a time. That means a Setup Man is pretty good. It doesn't work quite as well as Winning Streak. Both of these skills are popular for nerfs, but Setup Man is just a little bit worse, and you can kind of see that. It's run by less power ranking decks than Winning Streak is. It might be Com2 logic. I believe that Setup Man also gives all stats a boost, while Winning Streak only gives location and velocity a boost. So, that may be the difference maker for why Winning Streak seems to perform a little bit better. But it's still definitely a good gold or silver skill it's a good silver skill if you end up landing it, and it definitely belongs in this tier. So moving on, we're going to go down to usable third skills. Kind of at the top of this tier, I'd put Untouchable. I had to shorten it down to Touch for this video because Untouchable overran the box when I was typing it in, and so Touch is going to be what we're going to call it. Touch it's always active, which on your bullpen, you'd love always active skills, right? Like, you notice all of these skills that are usable or elite or whatever, when your pitcher's in the game, they're on, right? Like Finesse Pitcher, Last Boss, Winning Streak, your pitcher comes into the game as a closing pitcher, Winning Streak is on. It only pitches 1 inning, Setup Man is on. Touch is on as well, but in the bullpen, it tends to be a little bit inconsistent, and you'll kind of notice it if you get it on one of your bullpen pitchers. Their ERA is always a little bit higher than you might expect it. It's just inconsistent. It can be prone to giving up really blowing up a lead, so it's more of a third skill at this point, especially in the bullpen. Cleaning up your mess, also a third skill. It's solid. Especially on closing pitcher, though, you want these active skills, and cleaning up your mess isn't always active. That being said, something like dominant pitcher and fireballer, they can be prone to giving up walks, and if you give up a walk and you have cleaning up your mess paired with it, that can help band-aid the problem. But overall, you'd rather have something in this above tier, but if you land cleaning up your mess as the third skill, that's fine. Other usable third skills, we're going to put pitching machine in there. We're going to put stability in there. Pitching machine's a weird one. I don't know why it works, if I'm being completely honest. It boosts your fastball and your breaking ball. Location and velocity are the two most valuable stats for relief pitchers and for pitchers in general. But for some reason, golden pitcher, which boosts those two, isn't very good. And pitching machine is. Some theories are that it allows you to train your left side really high and then still get high pitch tiers. I don't know. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know. It might just be weird Com2 logic. Why does that work and not ace? I don't know. But pitching machine does work as a third skill. Might run into a nerf, and you definitely don't want to rely on it to carry a set, but it can work. Then stability is another skill. It boosts location and break, similar to finesse and control master. It gets an extra boost if you have a catcher with 110 plus fielding. So if you meet that condition and you have a high catching field or a high fielding catcher, stability can work out as a third skill. If you don't have high fielding on your catcher, maybe it's not a SIG or it just has a low base field, stability might not be as good, but it hangs, it works. So we're going to put it in this usable third skill tier. Moving on down below that, the only other two that that technically provide value, one of them is Giant Crusher. If your card is a non-SIG, Giant Crusher will activate. It basically activates if your pitcher has worse stats than the batter. Giant Crusher comes online. It technically provides value, especially if you have a non-SIG closing pitcher. It'll come online against their SIG batters and really their best batters, their high overall ones. You definitely prefer pretty much anything in the tier above, skipping over the unusable legend skills. You pretty much want anything in the tier above over Giant Crusher, but if you have it, technically, yes, you are getting value, and it can exist. It can work on a card. So, similarly, Iron Will, it only comes online if the batter who's at bat has gotten on base before. You don't want batters getting on base, so Iron Will, in an ideal world, would be useless, right? Because you haven't let any batters on base. Iron Will doesn't come online. Obviously, that doesn't always hold up. So again, you may get value out of it if the batter who's up to bat has been on base earlier. It will induce soft contact, but you just don't want to be letting batters on base, and you pretty much prefer anything above it. So technically usable, would I? Not really. So that's going to just about do it for the closing pitcher tier. Let's move on to setup men. All right, so let's talk about your setup men next. There are two of them. Neither of them really comes in more than the other. I put my best one in the first slot, but both of them come in about the same amount of situations and the same type of situation. So they come in if your starter comes out of the game and the game is tied or you are leading and it's before the ninth inning. Your setup man will also come in if you are tied in the ninth inning. Your closing pitcher won't come in, which is why winning streak is good on closer, but your setup man will come in that situation. Sometimes if your closer blows a big enough lead, your setup man will also come in if the game is tied, but sometimes it'll leave your closing pitcher in. So really these guys are just late inning, game is tied, or you're winning. They can also come in if it's the ninth inning and you're winning by more than 3. So late inning, tied, winning, as long as it's not the ninth inning and you're up by 3, these guys can come in the game. So keep that in mind while we look at, what kind of skills we're going to put on them. All right, so let's start this out with, again, legend skills. Bullpen day, easily in the best legend skills. Control master. Hint, these are going to stay in a tier of their own the entire rest of this video. And honestly, a lot of these tiers are going to remain the same. Usable legend skills with high levels, Fireballer goes in there, And cooperative pitching, I'm way more comfortable putting it in to the usable legend skills with high levels. For a setup man, if it gives an iron will effect, so if this pitcher gives up a hit, then when the next pitcher comes in, if they're facing that guy who got a hit, they get an iron will soft contact effect. It won't be super applicable, all the time. The stat boost is nice, and it can come up, especially if the guy with cooperative pitching comes in early enough, maybe in the seventh or the sixth or seventh inning, and gets around to the ninth, and the CP is in, and it immediately preceded them. Cooperative pitching can work. It can be fine. I'm way more comfortable putting it in this usable legend skills with high levels. It's still not as good as Fireballer, but I'm fine with it in the bullpen. So usable is a good description for it. Back to unusable for your setup men. Slow starter still, you may get 2 innings out of your setup man, but slow starter really hasn't kicked in at that point. Pitcher's insight still useless. It's going to remain in this tier the whole video. And pitcher's chemistry, you don't want it on your setup man. So now let's go on elite gold and silver skills. We're going to keep finesse pitcher, tier of its own again. I really should have just made this tier, finesse pitcher, because for the bullpen, Boss is this weird thing where I've talked about him straddling tiers. Boss could be up here, and the only reason it's below is because it does get nerfed. If there wasn't a Boss nerf in the game, it would definitely be up here with finesse pitcher. And if you can take it to level 8, it really is really good, but it's still the best good gold and silver skill. I'd still put it a tier below finesse. Keep it rolling. We're going to put dominant pitcher here. Definitely worse than last boss. And this is where it gets a little bit different. These are really the only 3 skills I'd put in these 2 tiers. And let me tell you why. When we're looking at setup man, which was in this tier for closing pitcher, your setup men, they can stay in for 2 innings at a time. And if you only get setup man for one of them, then that second inning is going to be really rough. So it's fine as a 3rd skill on your setup man, but I wouldn't put it in with the elite or good, skills. So it's a 3rd. And winning streak, in kind of the same vein, your relief pitcher, your setup man, they can come in when the game is tied. They can come in when the game is winning, in which case winning streak is great. But if you're tied, they can also come in, and if they have winning streak, it won't be active. So that kind of knocks it down a tier for me. Really, Boss and Dom are the only 2 in good gold silver, and setup man, winning streak, combine them with nerfs, and they kind of get put in the 3rd skills. I would say setup man is definitely the better of the 2 for that position, but definitely still only a 3rd skill. So gold skills that can go in that tier. Touch, for a similar reason, to last time, it can be inconsistent. It's not as good as Boss or Dom. It goes in this usable 3rd. Cleaning up your mess can go in this usable 3rd as well. I use it. I run Control Master with Dom and Mess on my setup man. It works great. Mess is one of those skills that if you have low level, like we talked about earlier, level 3 or below, cleaning up your mess is an excellent low level skill. It works just as good or almost as good at level 1 as it does at level 7. So mess is fine for a low level skill. It's fine for a 3rd skill. And then we're just going to keep it up. Pitching machine in here, stability in here as well. I might put those 2 above winning streak too. They're usable. Winning streak, I just don't love on setup man. It's probably active 50% of the time, if that, and when it's active, it can get nerfed. So don't love it on a setup man. Then finally, technically provides value, similar to what we were talking about earlier. Iron Will can go in there. Giant Crusher can go in there. I'd probably put Giant Crusher above Iron Will. So not too much to talk about. This position is definitely the second most important on your squad. So if you have a, 2 SIGs, you probably want one of them in closing pitcher, and you want one of them in setup man, probably in your SU1. It's an important position. You know, if you have a pitcher go twirl 7 innings and you need someone for the 8th, you want a good setup man. If your starting pitcher only goes 7 innings or 6 innings and you need someone for the 7th and 8th, again, setup man, that's who you want. Fixer, inning eater, they aren't really good in this position at all, so we're not going to talk about them. So with setup man and closing pitcher out of the way, let's talk about our middle relievers. You get 3 of them. They come in when you're losing the game. They can pitch multiple innings. It's really nice to have good middle relievers because they can win you games. You know, if they can keep you in a close 1-0 game, and then you can come back and get hits off of the closing pitcher or off of the setup man, you know, you're really happy for having a good middle reliever. They're definitely not the most important on your squad. I would definitely work on getting the closing pitcher and the setup men better before I really work on these middle relievers. So they come in when you're losing after your starting pitcher comes out. So keep that in mind. All right, so let's go back. You guys are used to it by now. Bullpen day, control master, they're the best 2. They're going to stay the best 2. This tier is going to have a little bit of a shakeup now. So fireballer, still good. Cooperative pitching definitely belongs here on your middle reliever. It's usable. The standards for middle relief are much lower than the other positions because you're already losing by the time they come in, and you basically just hope they can keep it close so you can get a comeback win. Another skill that goes in here, I don't love it. Technically, it's usable, though. You can put slow starter in this tier. And the reason you can do that is because these middle relievers, they can pitch up to like 3 innings, maybe even 4. And if you have slow starter in that case, it can provide value. I would still prefer pretty much any of the 4 above it, and definitely bullpen day, control master, and fireballer. But because you can go multiple innings, if it's paired with 2 other good skills, you can short it. You can leave it at level 1, 2, 3, you know, whatever the lowest skill is, and it can work in middle relief. It doesn't really work in the other bullpen slots because they're not pitching that long, but middle relief, it can. I'd still prefer higher, but it can. You know, I prefer one of these, but it can work. After that, we got pitcher's insight, unusable, not even for middle relief, and pitcher's chemistry is for middle relief, still unusable, but if you are rolling for a middle reliever and you land pitcher's chemistry, then we'll talk about long relief. That's where it goes, and you can move it over there. But, yeah, it's not usable even in middle relief. So moving on, finesse pitcher is your elite silver gold skill. I should have just named this tier finesse pitcher. Good, you know, boss, dom, and new silver skill into the mix that we haven't talked about before, fixer. Fixer is active when your team is losing. Your middle relief is only in when your team is losing. Fixer kind of fills the void here of winning streak and setup man on your closer. It's good. It's really good. If you have Finn Fixer on your middle reliever, like that can be a set all on its own. Boss Fixer is what I run on my Austin Gomber. It's not very good. Just another instance of Boss being this straddle tier, not quite as good as Finesse, but better than the rest of these gold and silver skills. One note is I do know some high-level Cardinals decks that nerf Fixer. I asked them why, and they said that they want people to lose so bad they feel like uninstalling. So that was kind of ridiculous, but it can help you hold a lead if you nerf Fixer. I wouldn't do it. I would try to always be getting those comeback leads against the setup man and against a closing pitcher by nerfing either winning streak or setup man. But Fixer is solid, and you may run into a nerf every once in a while. So yeah, it's in this good gold and silver tier. Moving on down, as we've seen before, touch is usable as a third. Mess is usable as a third. We're going to put pitching machine and stability in here. They're both usable as a third. And setup man can be used. I've seen it in middle relief. Sometimes they only go 1 inning. I kind of want to put it in the technically provides value, though, because you never know when your middle relief is going to go 2 or 3 innings. And if you're going more than 1 inning with setup man, it's just a useless skill. Uh, yeah. So for the rest of these, for middle relief, they're all kind of in this technically provides value, except for winning streak, we're leaving it off the list. Giant Crusher, similar to before. If he's your middle reliever, he's non-sig, and you go up against a sig batter, Giant Crusher technically has some value. Iron Will, if you're losing, it means somebody's gotten on base for the other team. Iron Will might become active, right? It might be useful, and so I might even move it up for the first time today ahead of Giant Crusher. No, I'm going to leave it below. Giant Crusher is pretty good if it's on a non-sig. Inning Eater, because you're going multiple innings, I can put it all the way down at the end here. Technically, it's providing value. Technically, it's usable if you're going multiple innings on your middle reliever, but I don't love it. It's not a great skill. So it's just basically the lower your stamina gets, the more soft contact it induces. So technically, it provides value, but I wouldn't take it over any of these skills above it. So if you have a middle relief, this is what your tier list looks like. You hit Bullpen Day Control Master, you're happy. You hit one of these skills. Really, if you hit Fireballer, you're happy as well. Cooperative, you're still pretty happy if there's high levels there. Slow Starter, it's okay. And then the rest of these skills, Finesse, Fixer, Boss Fixer, Dom Fixer, you can make all of that work. Fixer is a really good second skill on a middle reliever. So, yeah, this is what your tier list looks like for middle relief. All right, so the final bullpen position to talk about is long relief. This only comes in if you're getting absolutely blown out. In league mode, it can come in a tied game, but we're not really worried about league mode. There's really only one skill you want in this position. Everything else is going to go in the technically provides value tier. If you're a power ranking team, since this can come in a tie, having a good second or third skill can give you an edge, but the ties aren't coming a ton, and you really want to focus on making everything else on your team better before you care about a second skill on your long reliever. So, long reliever comes in when it's a blowout, and you really shouldn't be seeing them a lot on your team. So, for long relief, pitcher's chemistry. It's the only skill you need. We can fill in these. These all technically hold true. Do whatever we want there. Right? That only skill you care about. Doesn't even matter anything else. Pitcher's chemistry. Long relief is only pitcher's chemistry. Pitcher's chemistry provides a buff to the rest of your team by either +7 or +8 to all the stats. Since long reliever never comes in the game, if you stick pitcher's chemistry on this long reliever, it makes every other pitcher in your bullpen better. This long reliever is never getting used. Pitcher's chemistry is excellent in long relief. If you're premium skill changing a normal card and you hit pitcher's chemistry, even if it's a good one, just park it. Park it in long relief. It's worth the sacrifice. On a legend, it gets bonus stats. Let's say you're rolling for something good on Goose Gossage and you get pitcher's chemistry, park it in long relief. Your team will get better. Pitcher's chemistry is so good in long relief. You want one on your team. Every single power ranking team is running pitcher's chemistry in their bullpen. There's not a single one that doesn't. Pitcher's chemistry is important. Okay? You land it. If it's on a SIG, I would probably roll past it. You don't really want to, especially if you only have one or two. It's different if you have 6 bullpen SIGs. If you have 1 or 2 bullpen SIGs, I might roll past it just because if you're not buying a lot of SIGs, you don't want to waste one in your long relief spot. But you want pitcher's chemistry. You want it in that spot. It will take you up some tiers. For me, getting pitcher's chemistry really made the difference between when I was high gold and when I started making diamond was when I got pitcher's chemistry. So, really good skill. You need it on your team, and it only works in long relief. So, yeah, long relief, pitcher's chemistry. We don't care about the rest. It doesn't matter. Maybe you care if you care about league mode and you care about your long reliever coming in ties, then just check out the setup man guide for what the other skills should be. But you shouldn't be using greens when you have a pitcher's chemistry set. You shouldn't be using blues. You just land it and you park it in long relief. So, if you're wondering what skills the best teams in the world were using in the power ranking tournament, someone on Reddit actually went together and sorted through all the skills. They did this for starting pitchers and for batters as well. Um, but we're talking about bullpen. So, somebody on Reddit went through and sorted through all the bullpen skills on all the power ranking teams. So if you're really curious what the best teams are running, you can check it out. The Power Ranking Tournament Bullpen Editions or Bullpen Skills 3rd Edition by Mainly Bread. You can see Control Master and Bullpen Day are a high chunk of the closer skills. Finesse Pitcher is significantly more popular than a lot of the other gold skills. Winning Streak is there a lot. So if you're curious just about what these best teams in the world are running, you can go check out the Power Ranking Tournament Bullpen Skills 3rd Edition on Reddit. Just Google that title and it should pop you up. But that's gonna just about do it for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Like I said, this was really meant to be a high-level overview, not an in-depth, what skill to short and what skills pair well together. It's just a high-level overview to help you make your bullpens better. I'm going to keep releasing some skills guides just while I wait for, hold my SIG packs for 2022 SIGs to come out. That's going to make my odds a lot better. So, yeah, we're going to be putting out more guide content here in the future. If you'd like the tier list format, please let me know. If you think it would be better for me to switch up from the tier list format, also, please let me know. I don't know if this is intuitive or if this is, kind of junk for learning how bullpen skills work. In my head, it makes sense, but I want to know if it works for you guys. So, thank you for watching. Leave a like, leave a subscription. We're really close to 1,000, so I would appreciate some more subscriptions. Thank you all for watching, and I'll get back to you with another guide.